on YouTube? Today we get to combine two of my all-time favorite things, horror and superheroes. So let's dive into 1998's Blade. Blade is written by David S. Goyer, who would go on to pen the entire Batman Nolan trilogy. And it stars Wesley Snipes as Blade, Chris Christopherson as his right-hand man, Whistler, who makes his weapons and helps him in his vigilante escapades. And it also stars Steven Dorff as the villainous Frost and Nabush Wright as Karen. And it's through Karen that we are exposed to the inner workings of the vampire hidden society, where they really have a lot of stuff bought and paid for, including the police. And we are introduced to this world through the eyes of an unwilling soul who is lured to a nightclub. And it's here that we have the very famous, very well done, still holds up club scene to open this movie. And we watch this guy get doused in blood. We're waiting for him to get bit or something terrible to happen to him. And then there's the reveal. The most badass person in the room is not one of these vampires, it's the Daywalker. It's Blade, as he emerged completely clean and ready to kick ass. And what follows is a lot of on camera action, and that's why the action still holds up, is because Wesley Snipes trained. He's a very highly trained and skilled martial artist, and he's able to do a lot of these moves in real time. Not sped up, not slowed down. It's all filmed in real time in front of the camera, and it still works really, really well to this day. I just watched this movie yesterday, and I still had a blast. And not every single action scene is going to be doused with techno fat bass, but this one works, and it's iconic, and I love every single minute of it. And once we're introduced to Karen, it's through Karen that we get to see the inner workings of Blade and how these vampire hunters work. And they go out every night and they try to take down these vampires who are living right in the shadows, right under our noses, and feeding on humans. So it's a really interesting idea, and I really like how they explore how some humans would choose to be servants rather than food. So they would go work for the vampires and become what's called a familiar, in hopes of maybe one day being turned. And I always thought that was kind of cool as a kid. There's always going to be somebody who wants to have that power, so that made sense. One of the biggest strengths of this movie is the cast. Now, I already covered the principal cast, but you also have Donald Logue as Quinn, and Quinn is Frost, like right-hand man, main lackey. He has several interactions with Blade throughout the movie, and they kind of have a fun dynamic back and forth. Couple of running, recurring jokes. Writing by David S. Goyer is top notch. The action is top notch. Wesley Snipes is in peak form. This is before he completely started phoning it in. I mean, he's trying really hard, and it shows. Everybody in the movie is trying very hard. I think that this movie should be credited as starting the superhero movement, because this is the first one that I really remember seeing aside from Batman, almost 10 years prior. I'm not in love with the end of the movie. There's definitely some poorly aged CGI in this particular part of the movie. And I don't know, I'm not 100% on board with the whole Blood God subplot where Deacon's trying to unlock the full force. I mean, he ends up just getting like darker eyes. He still looks like Deacon, which is fine because, again, Steven Dorff does a great job. I don't want to lose that character. I think there was another ending where he turns into a gigantic blood monster, and that's not it either. That was received very poorly because people didn't want to lose Steven Dorff. So I think they overcorrected and didn't lose the subplot. They just lost the giant blood monster, and I think they should have just found a different way to kind of write this movie into its finale. I don't know that that was the way to go, but again, I don't have a better idea. I just don't like, again, I don't like Deacon's plan. I don't like Frost's plan. We don't really go anywhere other than just watch him sit around and wait for this thing to be decoded. And then when it's decoded, he somehow hijacks half of, the royal class of vampires and takes them to this temple that they somehow forgot about and summons the blood god. It just, I don't know. I feel like they could have done better. That's all I'll say. I feel like we could have done better. But what I am a fan of is all of the action and all of the creative ways that Blade is able to dispatch of his vampire foes. whether it just be a sword or a gun or some of the other really creative weaponry that he and Whistler have come up with. It's just a blast to watch him do his thing. And the movie's pretty fairly paced. I mean, we have the classic problems with a first entry where we have to meet all of these people and get introduced to how the world works. And I do think that's the one thing that holds this movie back is we don't really go anywhere other than just to the world of the vampires. We are introduced to the players, and then we kind of just watch Blade do his thing for one or two nights, and then we have the finale. And that is a problem that I think is rectified in the sequel, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for now, this is where I'm going to leave you. I give the original Blade a 7 out of 10. I think it's a lot of fun. Great introduction to the character, great introduction to the world. And then what we have that follows, and we'll talk about tomorrow, is I think one of the better action sequels of all time. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Be good people.
Yeah. Yeah.